If you've been stuck in your business, you've been stuck at a specific revenue ceiling that you just can't figure out how to break past, or even worse, you've been going backwards on revenue. This video is made for you, and I don't care if this is you just trying to get to your first $100,000 a month in sales, or if you're trying to get to your first million, multi-million, or even $10 million plus per month. This video applies to any phase that you might be at. And the answer is not going to be to change your overall strategy or change these different tactics and try to add all these different points of execution. The answer, more often than not, actually might be that you have a belief barrier, something that's blocking you either consciously or unconsciously, that's holding you back from getting to that next level. And this oftentimes is the big domino where if you can knock this one down, it makes everything else fall easily right down beneath it. Now, I'm going to explain exactly what I mean by what a belief barrier is in just a second, but just some quick context on myself. My name is Elon Moose. I run a portfolio of e-commerce brands that are doing above $10 million plus per month. We're hoping to hit over $100 million in sales this year alone, and I actively am documenting my journey. I actually have absolutely nothing to sell any of you guys right now. I had a high-level consulting program. We've got some incredible results. I'm going to make some videos on that in just a bit, but right now we just want to be super zoomed in to getting to that $100 million a year. So I have absolutely nothing to sell you. I'm just making this video for the fuck of it and for the fun of it. So hopefully you guys can take some value out of it. But let's break down what a belief barrier is. And I want to illustrate this actually through a story of mine from when I was early on in my e-commerce journey, and I was actually only at, I believe, $10,000 a month when I first realized what a belief barrier was and how impactful it actually was. So at that time, I had really not met anyone in the industry or anyone in the space. So for me, everything that I was consuming was just from YouTube videos, just like the one you're watching right now, or other ones in the space. And that's where I was getting all of my education, all of my knowledge. Everything was self-taught. At this point, I never joined a course or a mentorship. So I was actually just embarking into my first mentorship at that time, where I was going to start meeting some people face-to-face, at least virtually, online, to start meeting people in the industry, and then also meeting with some mentors and understanding and trying to learn a bit more. Now, this phase was super impactful, but not because of the reason that I initially thought. Initially I thought it was going to be, some massive tactical breakthrough or something I never knew, or some strategy that, was just not being shown on the surface. But what I realized, the biggest thing for me was actually just the exposure to people that were already in the position where I wanted to be. And let me break this down a little bit further, right? Because for me, just for context at this point, again, I was at probably $10,000 a month in sales, which is absolutely nothing, right? Now, I ended up encountering one guy that was at $30,000 a day, pretty much a $1 million a month run rate. And just for perspective, right, $30,000 a day is literally 3 times more than what I was making a month every single day, 100 times more than what I was making in a month, right? So in comparison, it was just unfathomable for me to actually see something like that. And the thing is, I was able to have a conversation with this guy where I met with him for an hour on a call. I was able to ask him questions. And what I started to realize was that the strategies that we were using were more or less the same. It wasn't really anything that different. And the tactics that we were using, yes, there was some nuance and some differences to what they were doing, but it actually wasn't that different. And also with speaking with this guy, he actually wasn't any more intelligent than I was. I was able to see that, this guy is literally on the same level as me. It's not like he understands some unworldly thing that I have no clue on. It's actually someone that is pretty similar to me. And that within itself, the first time it happened was huge, but then the second time it happened and the third time it happened, where all of these different people were doing significantly more revenue than what I was doing at that time. Every time I was able to have a conversation with one of these people, I was able to start to see a pattern where these people were not more intelligent than me. Their strategies were not that different than me. There was some nuance, of course, to the product, maybe some of the ways that they were marketing, and I was able to pick up a ton, don't get me wrong, on the different strategies and behind the scenes of what they were doing. But the thing that was crazier to me was that some of these people screen shared, and I was able to see their actual revenue numbers face to face. I was able to see behind the scenes of what those revenue numbers actually look like, and that they're real, and that these people that now I was able to identify were not that much more intelligent than me, were not that much more special than me, were also able to do these kind of revenue numbers and using strategies that are very similar to what I was doing and the direction I was trying to go as a whole, and with the same protocols that I was trying to follow, because we were in the same mentorship program. that was a huge unlock for me because I was able to break past this belief barrier. And I think most of us have this. Again, it's either conscious or unconscious. For me, it was unconscious because at that time, I'd been watching a lot of videos from this specific mentor that I joined his program, from other people in the space that I was just learning and consuming this content. I even watched different testimonial videos of people that had went through the program and scaled from 50K a month to 500K a month or whatever it may be. And I was able to see that. And for me, I thought I believed it. I thought that, okay, this is all possible stuff. I'm seeing it. The strategies that I'm watching on these videos, it makes logical sense. I'm starting to apply it. I'm seeing some, base results of 10K a month in my own store from following a lot of these strategies and using the things that I've been now taught through YouTube to actually apply and implement. But unconsciously, what I believe for me at this point was that I still had some form of doubt of, is this real? Maybe this is some form of a paid testimonial or something, or, maybe it's because they're actually doing some completely different strategy that I have no clue what they're actually doing, but that's what's actually making it work. So they're obviously, gatekeeping the secrets behind all of this. And I think coming to the realization that the strategies that I was presented were pretty much the whole thing, and then seeing the behind the scenes and the inner workings of that strategy, and that there wasn't that much more that I was leaving out that was being done, and then speaking to people face to face where I was able to actually see those numbers, that it could get you to those results. It doesn't have to be some unworldly thing that I would have to do to actually be able to achieve those results, or I don't have to be extremely intelligent to a different degree to be able to get to those kind of numbers. I think all of that culminating together was able to show me face to face that it actually is achievable to get to those numbers. And it broke that belief barrier that subconsciously that I had at that time, that someone like me needed to be someone special to be able to do it. And the way things progressed for me from there was within a matter of 90 days, I was able to scale to my first $100,000 a month, which beforehand was kind of a myth to me, a make-believe thing. And I was able to do that just within a matter of 90 days after that. And obviously there's a lot of things that happened, a lot of work, trenching, all of that. So it's not like you can't do the work and all the other stuff. But what it made me realize is that I didn't have to doubt the approach I was taking, and I didn't have to doubt the strategy. It was more so doing more, better, figuring out what to do, getting more tactical insights, obviously, and some other stuff that you could sprinkle in there. But the route I was taking was correct, and I didn't have to doubt that anymore because I now saw it face to face. I saw that the route that I took is very similar to the route that these other guys were taking to be able to get to those results, and that now I knew for a fact that those results were actually achievable. I didn't have to assume it from watching videos, but I was able to see it. And that might be relatable for a lot of you guys that are watching even content like myself, where, I'm posting some pretty big numbers, and sometimes that might make you feel good, it might make you feel bad. It depends on how you look at it. But you guys, whether you believe it or not, right? It's like a lot of you guys have never spoke to me face to face, and that goes with a lot of other people in the space, right? It's like you see these different numbers, you see these different things, you might believe it, but until you actually come across someone that has got to those numbers and you've had a conversation with them, and you can come to the same realization, which I believe most people that have scaled have had probably a similar realization, and hopefully this helps put it into tangible words of kind of what that feeling is. But once you see it, I think that's really what allows you to progress to the next levels, because I think this is the overarching thing where once you identify this and you break past that belief barrier, it gives you way more conviction and speed and agility in the strategy that you're already doing, or to make the proper pivot because now you've spoken to someone and maybe some other ideas that you had in your mind of a different direction you should go, you've now been able to confirm is actually the right route and the right path to go. And it doesn't mean that the thing you're doing is always correct, right? It could be wrong and you might have to pivot, but seeing this really gives you the conviction and removes that doubt so that you can go full force and full speed on the thing that you thought might work. So the other thing I want to just mention on this, it's very similar to the story of the 4-minute marathon, I believe. It could be shorter. I think it was the 4-minute marathon, but most of you guys have probably heard this, right? It was believed that no one could run a marathon faster than 4 minutes. Someone ended up running it in 3 minutes and 59 seconds or whatever it may be. And then all of a sudden, everyone just started shattering past that speed and that record because now that belief barrier was broken and everyone was able to, see that it was actually possible and then move with conviction to actually being able to beat it. So again, this was early on in my career, this story that I'm conveying to you guys for how that phased out for me. But I think this applies at every single phase, right? Whether it's getting to that first $100,000 a month, like in this phase for me, that was, or even getting to my first $1 million a month or my first multi-millions a month, and even now surpassing 10 million per month, right? It's all these things that I think until you actually are around people that are doing it and then applying it for yourself and realizing that the path that you had, that you're on the right path, or you have to make X, Y, and Z pivot because you've now seen what that actually looks like behind the scenes of being able to get to those numbers. I think that's something that you have to remove for yourself so that you can go full force on the strategies and on the tactics that you see at play and the things that you're trying to follow through on. So I guess what is the purpose of everything I'm saying, and what can you take away from this, hopefully tactically? Well, I think, to name a few things and not to go into details on it, is I think if you have never been exposed to other people in this industry, which is a very isolating industry if you're in the online business space. This applies really to any business, but especially if you're in e-commerce or, SaaS or course selling or whatever it may be, right? The thing is, this industry is very isolating, and you can get very caught up in just being stuck in the trenches and not actually seeing the light of day and not seeing anyone in your industry or any peers in the industry. So the first thing I recommend is figure out a way to meet people in your industry, whether that's going to events, conferences, masterminds, consulting groups, programs, whatever it may be. Find people in the space. Now, when you're around these people, the best advice I have for that is try to give significantly more value than you are trying to take. If you are the person that is always giving, and even for me, when I was at $10,000 a month, I tried to figure out ways that I could give value to these people that were doing $30,000 a day, right? They were doing 100 times more than me on a scale of a month over the course of an actual month, right? So for me, it was like, okay, I was doing some cool stuff with wholesale. So I tried to explain that unique strategy I had over there that could provide some value to them in their business. And always, there's somewhere that you probably have some edge that you want to just try to figure out how to keep giving. And, that might not result in you getting the, answers that you want at first. But if you do that enough times, you're going to get the benefit to actually be able to learn from some of these people and see behind the scenes. And that's a more free approach to trying to figure that out. And that could be just, DMing people or going to one of those events or one of those conferences. The other way is obviously fast tracking your way and paying someone some form of a consulting fee to be able to learn from them, someone that is at that next target that you want to be to try to break that belief barrier. But that's another way. And then obviously there's a lot of ways in between that you can try to find to get in front of these types of people and expose yourself to people that are at those revenue levels or at those revenue targets where you're trying to get to, and understand for yourself that either the strategy you're doing and the conviction that you have is correct, and that you now can move with a lot more speed and conviction on that, or maybe you have to make a slight pivot on either a strategy or some tactics over there, and obviously a lot of inner workings in between. It's not just going to be this belief barrier breakage that will get you to the next target that you want, but that's kind of the big thing that if you remove that, it then makes everything else much easier to then decide on that strategy and decide on the path that you're going to take. So overall, I guess to summarize on what I think for this, and hopefully a way that this can provide value to you, is that if you are stuck and if you have plateaued at a specific level, then it may very well be that you don't actually believe that you can get to that with your current business model, with your current approach. And the best way to move forward is to validate either you are correct with your approach or understand that your approach is not correct and that you might have to move around. And the best way to do that is coming face to face with someone that has actually done it, where there is absolutely undeniable proof that they have done it, and there is no doubt in your mind that they've got to those types of levels, where then you are fronted with the reality that someone that is not that much more intelligent than you, a lot of the times, has been able to do that, and they're doing it with XYZ approach that is either similar or different than what I'm doing, but with enough people, you see the commonalities to then be able to move with conviction on your next steps and on your next approach without the shadowing doubt of belief that maybe you're not, going to be able to do it, or maybe, you have to be, super special to be able to do it, where you can then move with conviction to that next phase. Thanks for watching.